Before we start, I will go to Edit menu up top, then Preferences, and under Interface, increase the resolution scale. You select objects with left-click. Orbit by left-click and holding in this region, or use shortcut middle mouse button hold to do it. Zoom with this magnifying icon, or shortcut scroll wheel. Move the viewport with the hand icon, or Shift plus middle mouse button. All the shortcuts I will be using in the video will be visible on your top left corner of the screen. First, left-click drag over the light and cube to select them. Now right-click to bring context menu, and select Delete. We will keep the camera as it is for now. To make the roof, we will use a curve object, so to add it, go to Add menu above, and under Curve, select Path. Now if you click on this red X button, you will be switched to a side profile. Now we need to rotate the curve 90 degrees. So with the curve still selected, press R to rotate, then 9, 0, and Y, since we need it to rotate on Y-axis. As long as the curve is selected, you will see a curve property in the right editor. Head over there. And under Geometry and Bevel, increase the depth. I will also lower down the resolution to 1. Scroll up and lower down the shape resolution to 2. This is the horizontal segments of the object. Now to edit any object, we need to enter their edit mode. To do that, press Tab on your keyboard. Once in edit mode, you will see the points which are making the curve. Let's select the top point. Press G to move, and move it to the right a bit. Then press E to extrude the point, and move the new point down. Press E again to add new points, and try to create a spiral shape something like this. With any curve point selected, you can use Alt plus S to control the thickness of it. Now I'll box select some of them, and press G to move them away a bit, so they aren't intersecting. Switch back to object mode by pressing Tab again, and right-click to bring the context menu, and select Convert to Mesh. By doing this, you lose access to the curve points. But to follow the next steps, we had to do that. Now if you go to Modifier Properties, click on Add Modifier, and under Generate, select Subdivision Surface. The object will get more geometry, which you can control from here. Now you may be wondering, we had the option to change resolution in the curve properties as well, but instead of increasing, we actually decreased the value there. The reason being, we knew we will be converting the curve to a mesh object, which would have made the geometry permanent. And editing a high-resolution geometry is generally not ideal. But with our Sub-D modifier, the base geometry still has that low resolution, so it's much more convenient. Now switch to Edit mode by pressing Tab, and hold down Alt and left-click on any bottom vertex. This will select the entire bottom loop. Then press E to extrude. And right-click to cancel the movement. We still has the new vertices, only the movement has been canceled. S to scale them up, and G to move down a bit. Then E to extrude, and while still in movement, press Z to lock the movement to Z-axis. Now press Z, and select wireframe. Then select the bottom vertices, and use R to rotate them a bit. If we hadn't switched to wireframe, we wouldn't have been able to select the vertices on the other side. While still in wireframe view, click over here to turn on Proportional tool. With this enabled, if you move any of the vertices, the adjoining geometry moves with it as well. In case yours doesn't move like mine, the size of your circle of influence might be off. Use the scroll wheel on your mouse to adjust the circle size, or use the page up and down keys. Press Z again and switch back to solid view. And with the bottom loop selected, press F to fill it with a face. I will extrude again with E to give it a more thickness. Now back in object mode with Tab. If we scale our model with S, you'll notice it's scaling with respect to its object origin. What would be better is if the model scales from top to bottom instead, so we can move the origin to the bottom. One of the way to do that is to enter Edit mode, select all part of the object by pressing A. Then move up the object so the origin is under the object. Now go back to Object Mode with Tab. Now head over to Gizmo dropdown and turn on Move Tool. With this, it will be quicker to move the objects. Red for X-axis, green for Y, and blue for Z. Now press Shift+A, which is the shortcut to add objects, and select Cylinder under Mesh category. After you add the cylinder, you will be able to see a new menu in the bottom left. This is the Operator panel. From here, change the number of vertices to 8. In Edit mode, scale with S, and position it below the roof. Back in Object mode, use the shortcut Ctrl+2 to add Subdivision modifier of level 2. And to fix this weird shape, we need support loops in Edit mode. So in Edit mode, press Ctrl+R to add a loop. Right-click to cancel the movement. Then Ctrl+B to bevel, so we have 2 loops. Now I will use the shortcut Shift+Z to switch to wireframe view, and select the bottom vertices, and scale them up slightly, and maybe rotate the top vertices. Back in Object mode, I can right-click and select Shade Smooth to make the model smoother. Then for the base, I can simply duplicate the house cylinder with Shift+D and move that down. Then inside Edit mode, with top vertices selected, press X and select vertices to delete them. Then I will select the bottom vertices by Alt-left-click, E to extrude, and Z to lock the Z-axis, and F to fill the region. Now A to select all of it, and S to scale up. While still scaling, press Shift+Z, which will tell Blender to not scale on Z, but only on X and Y. You can tell Blender where to add a new object with the location of 3D cursor. You can use the shortcut Shift and right-click to place it. Now press Shift+A for Add Menu, and under Curve, select Path again. Then R, 90, and Z to rotate on Z-axis. In its Edit mode, select the 3 points in the center and move them up. Then scale down the endpoints to create a door shape. In the curve properties, we can increase the depth. Then lower down the bevel resolution to 1, and the main resolution to around 6. Now with 3D cursor in the center, add a mesh cube. In its Edit mode, scale it down. Then scale again, but press Z to lock Z-axis. Back in Object mode, I will move it to the left a bit. Then in the Modifiers section, under Generate, I will add an Array modifier, which will help in creating multiple copies of it. Now if I increase the count, it's going in the wrong direction. I need the copies to go in green direction, which is Y. So I can put 0 in the X field, and 1 in the Y field. And since they are very close, I can move them away from each other a bit. Hold Shift and left-click to increase the Y field value, so there is some gap between them. Since some of its part is sticking out of the frame, we can fix those in Edit mode. However, since they are copies, if I change any one of them, all gets affected. For this to not happen, the Array modifier need to be applied. So do that. Then with wireframe on, we can hide the sticking out parts inside. Now for the doorknob, I will add a UV sphere. And, down in the Operator panel, set the segments to 16 and rings to 8. And I also want the top part of the sphere to be facing front, so set the Y rotation to 90. Then scale it down. Now you can isolate your model using the / so you can have a better look at the model. And then in Edit mode, press 3 for the face selection so you can select faces. And select these faces at the back. E to extrude them. Then X and select faces to delete them. You may press / again to exit the local view. Now I can select all the door parts, then Ctrl+P. And select Object, which will make the final selected object the parent. So to move the door, you only have to select the final selected one. Rest will follow. I can simply rename this model by pressing the second function key, F2. Then Enter. I will rename the others as well, so it will be much easier to navigate later. For the windows, we can use Torus. And we will change the settings in Operator Panel. Keep in mind, if you do any other action after adding the object, the Operator Panel vanishes. So you can either undo the action and re-add the object for the Operator Panel to appear. Or you can press F9 key to bring it back. Now in here, I can set the major segments to 24 and the minor to 8. Shade smooth. And scale it down. Now we need it to rotate it 90 degrees on Y-axis, so press R90 and Y. And let's move this to the side for now. And if you hold Shift and S, you can select Cursor to Selected. This will place the 3D cursor to the origin of Torus. Then add a cube, and scale that down. And in Edit mode, 3 for face selection, and Alt-click near the side face to select Face Loop. Then press Alt+E to bring up the Extrude menu. Here select Extrude individual faces. After doing that, add a mesh circle. In its Operator Panel, set vertices to 8. And Fill Type to N-gon. We can control the radius from here as well. Then the rotation Y to 90. I can now do the same thing to it as the door. Select the different parts with frame selected at last. Ctrl+P. And select Object to make that parent. So now I can either move the window, rotate it on Z, and try to place it on the walls. Or I can take advantage of the Snap function. To turn it on, click on the magnet icon up. And in the drop-down, select Face Project, and then align rotation to target. And also make sure to apply the sub-D modifier to the house, as well as the roof. Now move the window with G, and it will automatically stick to the surface. Now Shift-select all parts of the window, and Alt+D to duplicate it, and place it to the other side. And one to the roof as well. After it's done, make sure to turn off snapping. To enter camera view, click the camera icon in the right. Right now, camera is not facing the direction we need. So first find a good angle for the camera. Then go to View menu. Align View. And select Camera to View. Now we can change the resolution in Output Properties. We can go for 1080 by 1080. Then with camera selected, we can use G to move it. And middle click to zoom in or out. Now I would like 2 different viewport to work with for the next steps. One for the camera, and one for orbiting and moving around. So move the mouse to the edge of an editor. You will see a double-sided arrow. When it appears, right-click. We will select the vertical split. And left-click, right around here. You can adjust the size after. Enter camera view in the left editor. Hide the toolbar with T. And then bring the cursor to the top menus and scroll to make the hidden menus appear. And hide the gizmos and overlays as well. Place the cursor near the door. And add a cube. Then S to scale it down, and use the shortcut Ctrl+2 to add sub-D modifier. Right-click and shade smooth. Then make some copies with Alt+D. and change their scale to have some variations. I will then duplicate all three to the right and rotate them on Z. Now I made a mistake of duplicating the rocks before naming it. So we now have cube 004, 005, and so on. So let's fix it. Select one of the rocks and press Shift plus L and select object data. This will select all of them. Now if you press Ctrl plus F2 instead of just F2, you can rename them all at once. Since they are all named cube, I can write cube in the find field and rock in replace, then enter. While at it, I can press M and move them all to a new collection called rocks. I will now add another path curve to make the plant, and R90Y to rotate it on Y. I will move this in edit mode, so the origin stays at the same location. Back in object mode, I can scale it down, increase the depth in curve properties. Then in edit mode, select the top point and press O to turn on proportional tool, then scale down with using the scroll wheel to adjust the influence. Then you can move the different points to have a plant shape. Back in object mode, I'll rotate it and duplicate using Alt plus D. Again, to rename them, follow the same process as the rocks. Before we start with lighting, I will scale down our model, since right now it's very big, and we will need an insane amount of lighting for that. So first we will need a reference object. So add a basic cube. Press N to expand the side menus. Under Item, set the dimension of this cube to around 10 centimeters, and then place it on the axis plane. With the cube still selected, use the shortcut Ctrl plus I to invert the selection, and S to scale them all down. I will move them down near the cube, and scale down again. And by clicking the blue Z button, I can switch to top view, and place the models to the world origin. Now that the cube's job is done, I can simply delete it. In the left editor, click on the last sphere to switch to rendered view. And in the render properties, change the render engine to cycles, and change the device to GPU from CPU for faster performance. In case it's grayed out, that means graphics card is not active yet. So head over to Edit, Preferences, and under System, turn on the best graphics card if it's already checked. Uncheck it and check it again. Now lower down the viewport samples to 32 for quick preview, and render samples to 128 or something, as rendering 4096 samples will take a very long time. Now for the lighting, go to World Properties. You can change the environment color and strength from here, but we will instead click the yellow dot and select Sky Texture. Now obviously we don't want the horizon to be in our final shot, so to hide it, we will use a new background. First Shift plus S and bring the 3D cursor to world origin. Then add a mesh plane. And in edit mode, S to scale it down. Then press 2 to enable edge selection. Select the edge at the back, and E to extrude that up. Then I will rotate the plane with R and Z, such that the plane covers the camera view. Now you may not see any issues at this moment, but this sharp edge will be visible when we will decrease the light intensity. So go to Modifier Properties, and add a bevel modifier, then increase the segments, and then the amount. Then right-click on the plane, and Shade Smooth. This little trick will make the background look infinite. Switch back to World Property, and decrease the strength to around 0.1. And we can change direction of the shadow by rotating the sun. I don't want any shadow here, so I am rotating accordingly. Now in the Add menu, select Area Light. I will move this up on Z-axis. Then from the side profile, I will rotate. But not like this. We will first change the pivot point to 3D cursor, which is at the world origin. So our light moves around the cursor. I will now rotate it around 45 degrees and move it slightly so it's outside the camera view. For the materials, let's start with window pane. After selecting, go to Material Property, select New, and under Surface, select Emission. Change the color and increase the strength. Then for the roof, simply set a color from the color wheel. Add materials to other objects in the same way. Now I want the frame of the windows to have the same material as that of the door. So you can select the one with material at last, and press Ctrl+L, and select Link Materials. That will copy the material. As you can see, I am making little adjustments with the scale of the model. As before, it was a bit tall to my liking. Now for the decorations, we can try adding some flowers to the scene. So place the cursor to the front with Shift right-click. And add a cube. S to scale that down. Then Ctrl+2 to add Sub-D modifier. And shade it smooth. / to isolate it. Switch to top view. Shift+D to duplicate it and place it above. Then scale the new mesh up. And scale down on Z-axis. And I will scale down a bit on X-axis. Now duplicate again with Shift+D, but instead of moving, cancel it with right-click. Since the pivot is still set to 3D cursor, we can use R to rotate. And it will rotate around the cursor. Do this couple of more times. While orbiting, you might experience some parts disappearing. This is because our scene is very small now, and it's getting difficult for the software to calculate. To fix it, expand the side menus, and under View option, lower down the clip start value. Now select all the flower parts, and use the shortcut Ctrl+J to join them together as one object. Then in Edit mode of the new object, with face selection enabled with 3, select the edge faces and move them up. Then A to select all and move them up so the origin sits at the bottom. I will exit the Edit mode and name it with F2. Then exit the local view with / and make some copies with Alt+D. Alt+D because I want them all to share the same material. Don't use Shift+D here. While moving, you can use the Snap tool to place them on the surface more efficiently. Now for the stars, add a circle. Vertices to 8. And fill type to N-gon. On second thought, let's delete that. And add a circle with 10 vertices. S to scale that down. Then in Edit mode, switch to top view. Press 1 to enable vertex selection, and I still have the snap turned on, so I will turn it off. Now select these alternate vertices with shift-clicking, and S to scale down, A to select all, and E to extrude up, then Ctrl+2 to add a Sub-D modifier. Right-click, and shade smooth as well. I will now turn the snap back on, and duplicate the star to the surfaces. Now let's add material to the flowers. But I want the bud and the petals to have different colors. But since they are just one single object, we will need to do it inside Edit mode. So in Edit mode, make sure no part of the petals are selected. Then with cursor on the bud, press L to select all of it. Then on the right, Clicking the plus button will add a new material slot, and hitting Assign will assign the new material to it. Now you may see since we duplicated the flowers with Alt plus D, they all share the same material. What I would like is them to have some color variations. So from top left corner, change the current editor from viewport to shader editor. Now make sure the petals material is the active one and not the other. In here we will add two new nodes, so Shift plus A and search for color ramp, and then object info node. From here I will connect the color to color. And on the left, connect random to factor. In the color ramp, if you click on the plus button, you can add new colors. And by selecting the slider, you can change that to any color. Also make sure the interpolation is changed from linear to constant. Now I want the same treatment for the stars, so select a star from left. Then for its material I can choose the petals material from the drop-down, which I suppose was material 9. Now select the camera. You can do it through the outliner as well. And then in the camera property, turn on depth of field. You can control the blurriness through focus distance. Or you can select the focus object with the picker tool. Let me select the doorknob, since that's in the middle of the scene. Now you may not see any blurriness at all, due to the scene being very small. But it's exactly what I want. I don't want the depth of field for the house, but for the circles which I am going to add next. So now make sure you are in camera view. Then add a circle. We will change the alignment to view, lower down the radius. And fill type to N-gon. Set the vertices to 8. Then in the material property, I will increase the emission strength to something high. Now I can duplicate this with Alt-D and scatter them throughout the scene. And finally, I will also change the background colors slightly. Before we render the image, it's good practice to save the project. So in case something bad happens while rendering, you still have the original project to work with. Go to File, Save As. Select a file folder, name the project, and hit Save. Then in the render property, make sure the render sample is low. Denoise is turned on. Then go to Render menu and choose Render Image. Wait for it to finish. Once done, save the image in your computer. One final tip to make the render pop. In the render property, scroll all the way down. Select Color Management and change the look to Very High Contrast or High Contrast. You will need to re-render the image. Once done, share it on social media and tag me. I would like to see how you made it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. If you made it to this far, consider giving this video a like and comment something down below to help my channel. And if you are new here, subscribe for more tutorials.